Amplified Unit. This is BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified Podcast, episode 19. It is the morning after Super Showdown. I have all the latest news and details and hot topics stemming from Super Showdown, and we're going to go over all of that here in the first segment. This podcast is the culmination of 3 different filming days, 3 different segments. On Thursday afternoon, I filmed a segment dedicated to Becky Lynch and the comments she had in a recent interview, talking about and vowing up to main event WrestleMania once more, and this time without Ronda Rousey. If you thought I had some words about that, you were right. And I filmed that on Thursday, and I'll have that segment for you on this podcast. Yesterday, Friday afternoon, before the Super Showdown hit the air, I filmed a segment dedicated to Jon Moxley and the havoc he's not only causing already in AEW, but the havoc he just caused in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And why I believe that's just the start of things, the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole mountain still to explore for Jon Moxley. I filmed that yesterday in segment 2. You'll get that in this podcast. And also in that same segment that I filmed yesterday, I reiterate, I triple down on the statements and words that I had about Roman Reigns last week. Because some fans still think that I'm just slamming Roman Reigns. I'm just throwing shade at Roman. When it couldn't be more opposite from the truth, I'll triple down and I'll try to get it through to those people once more. So Jon Moxley, Roman Reigns, that segment that I filmed yesterday, that'll be in segment 2 of this podcast. And again, I want to kick off the podcast with segment 1 being filmed the morning after Super Showdown. Because there's nowhere else that we could start. This is the talk of the wrestling world. Goldberg, Undertaker more specifically, and what they did in that 8-minute, that's right, only 8-minute main event last night. And whether Goldberg was severely injured or not, it doesn't matter to the point of time slot. You know damn well that match wasn't going more than 10 minutes anyway, nor should it have. So you got 8 minutes. Everywhere you look in the wrestling community, you have fans speaking out, voicing their frustrations, and showing their emotional opinions, and making those emotional opinions very loud and clear. Emotional because we love The Undertaker. Most of us love Goldberg. So what we saw last night was hard to watch. On top of that, this isn't just feeling sad for individuals or feeling sorry for individuals. This was cringeworthy at times because both Goldberg, who got dropped on his head, and Undertaker, who nearly got dropped on his head, definitely on his neck, upper back, lower neck, both could have been severely injured to the point of not walking out of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So there is so much to kind of cringe and feel bad about in that main event, and that's not how we wanted to look at Goldberg and Undertaker, because we know they're in their 50s, we know they're older, we know they're not necessarily main event caliber anymore, we know they can't put on 15, 20, 25-minute semi-classics, but you still had hype. A little bit. You still had some excitement. It's Goldberg. It's Undertaker. It's our childhood, and they're meeting for bragging rights once and for all. You wanted it to go off as best as possible, and it went the opposite way. It went off nearly as tragic as possible. If you guys didn't catch this, maybe it's best that you didn't. Again, it was 8 minutes long. It was filled with botches, and you guys know I hate talking botches in my videos. I've had this channel for over 2 years now, and I don't like to talk about botches because it's pro wrestling. Like in any profession, you might have a bad day, you might fuck up a time or two. Some people in the community just love calling that shit out, like they're fucking doing something special. No, I have too much respect for Goldberg and The Undertaker to just talk about botches. But that 8 minutes was filled with them. Goldberg early on went into the post and got busted open. Goldberg goes on to say, and he says, this is a quote from his social media, this is from Goldberg, immediately, I should say, after the match. Knocked myself out and thought I could finish. Love my fans, but let you down. Everyone else that found pleasure, he put in quotes, hope you're happy. So Goldberg says he knocked himself out. That was obviously from that post. And if that's the case, that was literally within the first 2 minutes of this match. So the next 6, the lights were on, but nobody was home in Goldberg land. He was still with it to the point where he knew what was going on. He knew move for the most part. But I don't think his body could match what his mind wanted him to do. Or maybe it was vice versa. Maybe his mind wasn't telling him anything, he was so down and out, but his body was going through the movements and the motions. Who knows? But you gotta take the guy's word for it. He's got no reason to bullshit us and try to cover the fact that it was a shit show. If he was knocked out on his feet, it was definitely from that post, I believe. And again, that busted him open. And what proceeded afterwards was a train wreck. There was a jackhammer that literally, it looked like Goldberg didn't know what to do next while Undertaker was in the air. And when he planted him, it was the upper back, lower neck area of Undertaker. And from that moment on, Undertaker was not pleased. There was a moment where Undertaker even tried to tombstone Goldberg, but Goldberg wasn't holding on for dear life or some shit. You could tell Undertaker was not comfortable with dropping him for that tombstone yet. It's like he wanted Goldberg to do something more. Hold him up a little bit more upper, above his fucking ass, some shit. But Undertaker finally did drop him, and sure enough, just like The Undertaker possibly had thought beforehand, Goldberg was dropped on his head. There's a slow motion shot that's playing around now on social media. Goldberg's head literally gets compressed into his neck. Guys, when I say cringeworthy, when you've been watching this product for over 30 years, that was one of the harder things to watch. And then there was a botched reversal finish that was, I believe, supposed to be another tombstone. But Goldberg fell flat on his back, and you could tell there's another slow motion shot when he fell. Goldberg was like throwing his arms up, and he didn't know where he was. Undertaker like kind of kicks him in the head. Incidental, I don't think he meant to like boot him, but he goes to like pick him up. And that's where Goldberg's like, shoot, I know I have to get up. You can tell Goldberg is not with it there. But his just natural instincts are telling him he's got to get up. Like this is a fight or flight situation for Goldberg. And he knows he's in panic mode. So he shoots up and they do an audible. And it turns into a choke slam. But you can tell Goldberg can't get any height whatsoever. And he doesn't get any height, man. And Goldberg kind of just falls. And Undertaker has to pin him. And immediately Undertaker gives this look after the bell rings. It's like, fuck, we bombed. We tanked. We fucked this up. And again, it's not even Goldberg's fault. It's not Undertaker's fault. If you're going to place blame, you look at the old man. That's the bottom line. Because he's the one who put them in that predicament. He put them in that placement. And there's nobody else but the old man. Nobody. You can't look at Goldberg, who had 7 weeks' notice. You can't look at Undertaker that wrestles once, maybe twice a year. That's on a good fucking year. And you're going to put them in the main event of an event you're calling the equivalent to WrestleMania. I'm going to call bullshit, man. So we can drag Goldberg like a lot of the community's doing. You can drag Undertaker like a lot of the community is doing. But you got to look at the promoter in these situations. I love seeing The Undertaker at events. I love seeing Goldberg at events. Put him in situations where it's just a moment in the show. Or if they're in a match, a 2 to 3 minute squash match. And the person being squashed should either be squashable, or if there's somebody that should deserve a push, you have them get squashed, and immediately the next night on Raw, you start a huge push. They take that as frustration, like that was a fluke. And now they're fucking wreaking havoc on the locker room. You could still make something of somebody that's been squashed. So I'm all for seeing Undertaker still. They still bring that larger-than-life aspect even in their entrance alone. Goldberg, the entrance alone, man, goosebumps. But you can't put him in a main event in a match that was probably supposed to be at least 10 minutes long and think they're going to put on a clinic. Whether or not somebody gets hurt or not, it doesn't matter. You can't depend on these guys to be doing that, nor should they be put in that position. So the frustration I have here is with McMahon. You want to do Goldberg and Undertaker, I understand. This is for Saudi Arabia more than it is for anyone in the States or anybody else. It's for those in attendance in Saudi Arabia. It's for that country. I understand that. So you have to bring the big names. But there was no reason that had to be the main event if you had any question at all of Goldberg's skill set. Or if you gave him, 7 weeks notice, which you did. I get it. On paper, it looks like the main event, no doubt. I even said that. But you have to know as the promoter, man, how this could end up. You know how Goldberg is, man. The guy's the type of guy who will knock himself out. He's done it more than once in his career. I blame the old man if you're going to place blame. It's the bottom line. And again, this was mostly for, what pisses a lot of fans off is that they build this as the equivalent to WrestleMania. Or bigger and better, they said, than WrestleMania. Those are their words. They didn't even stop at equivalent. And or better, they said. So when you do that, you're raising expectations. And when you do that and you don't live up to those expectations, you fail those expectations miserably, you're going to get fury from your fans. And nowadays with social media and online, you're going to hear and you're going to feel that fury. So that's what WWE is feeling today. I understand you need to market this thing. And if you want to market that to the Saudi Arabia crowd, equivalent to WrestleMania, that's fine. But once you start marketing that to the rest of the world, you have a problem. There has to be a better way to go about business with these Saudi Arabia shows. Either don't put them on the network, right? Or if you do, don't put that much stock in the States or elsewhere in the event. Because then again, you're raising expectations that you know cannot be met. Or you don't have the creative capacity in your organization to meet those expectations. So of course I love seeing the show, right? Like who am I to say I don't want to see an extra bonus show on the network? I want to see it, but if you're going to build it up to something fucking huge, maybe that you should not be billing that up to the world that way too. Maybe just bill it to something epic for the Saudi Arabia crowd, and that way, no harm, no foul. But if you're gonna honestly market it that way, a WrestleMania-esque event for the rest of the world, and it's really only for Saudi Arabia, we're gonna catch you in your bullshit. We're gonna catch you in your lie, because obviously that was just for Saudi Arabia. That was just to get all the big names to the event, and they had nothing for them. Most of these matches were under 10 minutes long. A few moves and that was it. I don't want to hear about 102 degrees. I know, in my review video yesterday, I put out there that I commend them. It was amazing that they all went out there in 102 degrees. That's great. But Triple H and Randy Orton at their ages were going out there and wrestling for 25 minutes. Just fine. You're telling me these younger cats can't go out there and do a 25-minute match? No, bullshit. They just didn't want to give them the time. They didn't have anything storyline-wise planned. They didn't have anything creative or fun or exciting stemming from these matches. It was just get all the big names there, have them do some moves, and call it a match. That was it. Even the fucking Battle Royal, 50 guys. A guy from Saudi Arabia ends up winning this thing. Mansoor. And I don't want to hear, he's good, basically. He's decent, but not good enough to beat the 50 guys in that fucking ring. Or should he be getting that spot? Come on. This was all done just for Saudi Arabia, and I understand, that's fine. But then don't promote it to the rest of the world that it's an equivalent to WrestleMania. Because now we're all calling bullshit, and you've infuriated fans. You can't just go around and claim shit like that when you're an organization like that. This isn't just like clickbait on YouTube, you know what I mean? This is WWE saying this is going to be like WrestleMania and probably better. It wasn't even an in-your-house show. It wasn't even Vengeance. It wasn't even a Backlash. It wasn't even a fucking Monday Night Raw. I can't even call it a glorified Monday Night Raw. It wasn't any of those. A tragic train wreck of a house show? Maybe. So I'm not placing blame on Goldberg and Undertaker. I'm placing blame on the old man. I'm placing blame on the suits and ties. And I gave you Goldberg's statement after the event. I'll read it one more time. Knocked myself out and thought I could finish. Love my fans, but let you down. Everyone else that found pleasure, hope you're happy. Taker, who was visibly upset again after the match, he liked an Instagram post that was, obviously on Instagram. That's why he liked an Instagram post. That makes sense, BC. He liked an Instagram post on Instagram. But Undertaker kind of caught the eye of the wrestling world because, yeah, there was an Instagram post that stated from a fan, "Can you please stop bringing back The Undertaker now? Jesus, after everything he's done for the company, just let him retire in peace. Just let them live out the rest of their lives in peace, or what do you say? Live out the rest of their lives in peace, I apologize, or they'll end up getting seriously hurt." That's a little dramatic, live out the rest of their lives in peace, like they're fucking dying or some shit. But I understand what this fan is saying. I mean, at this point, if Vince does keep parading out there in these situations, something tragic might happen, absolutely. Undertaker actually liked that post. Yes, the actual Instagram of the Taker, like the blue check mark and everything. The actual Undertaker Instagram liked that post. I have to believe that this was a mistake, like Triple H has been doing. You guys saw recently, or if you haven't heard, Triple H liked a couple of posts that were pretty much bashing the WWE. And Triple H was seen, his actual account, liking those comments. You have to believe those were mistakes. You know, when you're just scrolling down and you accidentally like somebody's shit. And what do? Do you, if you know that you did it, your only option is to try to unlike it real quick. And maybe he's got so much in his head, Triple H, that he doesn't even notice. But he did it twice last week or 2 weeks ago. And I bet you he learned his lesson because we haven't seen anything like that since. Maybe Undertaker was kind of reading some shit about his match. He accidentally liked it. I don't see how he would trash Vince in the company on Instagram like that. An Undertaker in that capacity on Instagram, I just don't see it. So if it was a mistake, then that means Undertaker is absolutely scrolling what we're talking about on his matches, so he absolutely is curious as to how it's being perceived in his matches and his character. And if it wasn't a mistake, then he's making it vocally, is that even a word? He's making it very vocal, how's that? That he is displeased with being paraded out there now. And now we know that it's Vince McMahon who keeps giving him that phone call, throwing extra money and saying, dude, I need you. The company needs you. And maybe Mark Calloway is like, dude, I don't want to. I don't know. It seems like Mark Calloway was fine just making his money at like StarCast and doing some autographs now. And we saw not too long ago, he was open for bookings. And he was charging good money and making good money. And then Vince kind of took it all away and said, no, I need you with me. So maybe this is Mark Calloway voicing that frustration and showing it kind of nonchalantly, right? With a little bit of a like on an Instagram post by a fan. I don't know, but that was definitely, kind of shocking, and it kind of took me back when I saw that. I'm like, wait, is that the Taker? Yeah, that was the real Taker. But you could see even after the match, just the look in his face, and it wasn't just one look. The rest of that 4 minutes after the match, before they went off the air, Undertaker was just looking at the crowd, and he knew he was fucked. He knew that was about to be shit on. So that's all I'm going to talk about now with Goldberg and Undertaker. Again, the news coming out was Goldberg was knocked out on his feet. What we saw last night definitely matches those statements. Again, those statements are from Goldberg himself. It remains to be seen the severity of the actual injury. Taker actually liked an Instagram post from a fan, or it was a comment from a fan on a WWE post, and this fan was pretty much trashing Vince McMahon and their judgments for bringing in The Undertaker for these events, and they're going to get injured if this keeps up. Undertaker pressed the like button on that. Was that a mistake, or was that a subtle message to Vince McMahon and WWE that became not so subtle because it picked up mainstream headlines? Who knows if that was a mistake or not, but those are just some of the big stories coming out. A huge story coming out of last night, guys, was Natalya and Alexa Bliss. What are you talking about, BC? They weren't even a part of the show. Exactly. That's why it's a big part of the news this morning. Because they were trying their hearts out. Vince McMahon was trying to work something out with the Saudi government to have Alexa Bliss take on Natalya. Now I know, Alexa Natalya isn't going to excite you normally, right? But when you think of the significance that would have had in Saudi Arabia, first time ever, women do not compete there, guys. They're not allowed to. So to see that in the ring and Vince really trying to work with Saudi government, obviously half of that is to save face for his company because he still catches a lot of shit for going over there for many reasons. That would have been a huge little helpful turning point for Vince and WWE for going to Saudi Arabia. But unfortunately, the Saudi government put the X-nay, the kibosh. They did not clear Alexa and Natalya to go into the ring and perform last night. And that's a bummer because in an otherwise tragic show, that would have been a cool moment. Looking back at Super Showdown, we're left with nothing. You know? At least this morning we would have been talking about Alexa and Natalya making history. Instead, not only was it a tragic train wreck of a show, we also didn't even get that cool historic moment. I'm hearing that progress was made, and the next time they're in Saudi Arabia, you're most likely going to see this match, or at least two females in the ring. That's great if it happens in the future. It would have been so cool to happen last night, though. Progress has been being made in Saudi Arabia for the past several years when it comes to female athletes / entertainers. They're starting to come more out into the forefront. We would have loved to have seen Alexa and Natalya in that ring, but that's the big news story from last night. The story that didn't end up coming to fruition. Alexa and Natalya flew out to Saudi Arabia. Vince tried. WWE waited to the last hour, and when it was all said and done, the Saudi government said absolutely not. So that's a new story. A lot more podcasts to come, guys. We're going to do some wardrobe changes, right? Not really, but it's going to look like we did, because the next segment I filmed yesterday before Super Showdown, and we're going to talk Jon Moxley and Roman Reigns. But stick around after segment 2, because there's a segment 3. I filmed that on Thursday afternoon, and we talk Becky Lynch and how she wants to once again main event WrestleMania. Oh, fuck. So there's a lot of podcasts to go. Let's keep rocking. All right, so for this segment, we got some good news and some bad news. The good news is if your name is Jon Moxley, you are on top of the pro wrestling world. Bad news? There's only one Jon Moxley, and it certainly isn't any of us. Jon Moxley has taken the pro wrestling world by storm in the last week to 2 weeks. The moment he showed up to AEW, he made an immediate impact, pun intended, and a huge splash, knocking the AEW tier and pecking order on its ass. Right, when you think of the top headlining talent in AEW, not wrestling-wise, because then you would have to throw in Christopher Daniels, Pac, even though they're a tag team, the Young Bucks, and so many others. But when you think headlining talent, you're thinking Jericho, Omega, Cody. But Moxley showed up and knocked that on its ass because now people are taking that top 3 and they're adding Moxley in there. Jericho, Moxley, Omega. Or Jericho, Omega, Moxley. Or even Moxley, Omega. Whichever way you flip your order, and a lot of our orders, Cody kind of got booted out of the top 3. Or maybe he's still in your top 3. Maybe you booted Omega. Maybe you had a different top 3 anyway, as far as headlining talent. I don't see how you could. Again, a plethora of Dynamite wrestlers. But when you're talking about people selling those tickets and bringing asses into the arena, those are your household names. But Moxley has showed up in absolutely, friend or foe, it doesn't matter. He is now a companion to Jericho, Omega, and Cody. And company has arrived. He is that company. But it's not just AEW. We're quickly finding out that what Tony Khan said is more accurate than we thought beforehand. And that is that this contract that AEW had cut with Moxley, he literally can be an independent contractor, basically. This contract is really just kind of fluff. He is an independent wrestler at heart. He can show up to New Japan Pro Wrestling, which he already has. He can show up to ROH, which he most likely will, and anywhere in between. Because that's what happened. Recently, just in the last 48 hours from the making of this video, he showed up to the Super Juniors finals in Tokyo, defeated Juice Robinson to become the new IWGP United States Champion over there in Japan. And on top of that, I got word that he will be this Sunday at Dominion in Osaka, Japan. That is huge. Because not only is he doing this work over in AEW, he's got his hands in all the cookie jars. He's over in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Again, ROH, you gotta believe he's gonna be doing work with. Who knows where he's gonna show up? That's great for the fans and great for Moxley. I'm an old school type wrestling fan. I like allegiance to one company. But again, that's old school. You know, I wouldn't expect to see Aaron Rodgers play 8 games with the Packers, have a bye week, then he shows up on that off week with the Kansas City Chiefs, plays the rest of the 8 games for the season with the Packers, shows up at the Pro Bowl with a Dolphins helmet and representing the Dolphins. No, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't play for a plethora of teams. It's allegiance, you know? A woman could have a boyfriend, but if that boyfriend is seeing 9 other women, right? If he's fucking 10 women at once, is that really your boyfriend or is it just everybody's, right? It's not as special. So for me, the AEW Moxley contract in Allegiance isn't as special anymore, though, because he is with everybody. He's just with everybody other than WWE, basically, is what this contract is. You can work anywhere you want, but WWE. Obviously, he doesn't want to be there right now. That's the whole point of leaving. So it's not as special for me, but it's really cool to see this guy doing what he's doing. And I had to take a step back and think like, wow, Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, is the talk of the town. He is on top of the pro wrestling world. Like, it's funny how this business works. It just seems like yesterday where he was wearing that god-awful jacket in the ring and a gas mask and talking about how the people smell and that he trying to be a bad guy and villain, trying to work with what the writers gave him, and it just was bombing. It was horrible. Fans couldn't care less. Dean Ambrose had hit rock bottom in WWE. And you didn't think there was a way to resurrect his career. It just seems like yesterday that was happening. And here we are. He put the game plan in place. Everything worked out in the right time frame. The pieces of the puzzle all were put together at the right time, the right way. And all of a sudden, Ambrose transforms back into Moxley and he is on top of the wrestling world. How did this happen? Just last year. Or was it the beginning of the year? Last year, the beginning of one of the fucking... I think it was the beginning of the year. He was doing that heel character in WWE and it was just bombing. And now look at him. It is amazing. And I'll be honest with you guys, when Moxley was Moxley the first time around, when he first got into pro wrestling as Jon Moxley, I saw his matches, knew who he was, and I did not see a bona fide superstar. I'm just being honest. When he got to WWE and he turned into Dean Ambrose, and he was with the Shield, and I saw this character that could be something like Stone Cold if they do it correctly in the future, I said, this guy has a chance to be a bona fide superstar. WWE failed miserably and fucked him up in so many ways. More ways than I thought possible they fucked with Dean Ambrose, to the point where nobody even cared about him anymore. He goes back to Jon Moxley, and this Jon Moxley, unlike the first time around, this Jon Moxley is a bona fide star. And just like Moxley said in that Talk is Jericho interview, where he said, I thank WWE because I matured, I grew up in WWE. You see that in this Moxley. You see that all those rough edges that he had the first time around as Moxley, they're fine-tuned now. This guy is a well-oiled machine. He has that ruthlessness, that physicality, that violent streak that Moxley had the first time, but now he's got the wisdom and the knowledge to back it up. That is a dangerous superstar in the pro wrestling world, and his name is Jon Moxley. So it's just amazing to see what he's doing in the business. I don't like the fact that he's going everywhere and competing. Again, great for fans. If you're in Japan, for instance, and you follow AEW, you get to watch AEW, and then he gets to show up in Japan. You get to see him there, and vice versa. So you get to see him all over the place. It's great for the fans. It's great for the wrestlers to have these type of contracts. They get to make money deservingly however they please. I just like allegiance, you know? I'm unapologetic to that. I like just one guy with one company. And then it makes it way more fun if they decide to leave too. And what? He's with the rival company? But this way, he's kind of with everybody. And that's kind of where we're seeing. If you're not in WWE, you're kind of seeing all these other companies let their wrestlers wrestle wherever they want. That's a little dangerous because if you're promoting a big match at an upcoming pay-per-view, for instance, and your wrestlers are wrestling all over the world and getting injured elsewhere, your big match is now in question. It's in doubt. You know, that's a lot of marketing and promotion that goes to shit. All because this guy is putting on mileage on his body everywhere around the world. I don't know, man. It's a catch-22, I guess. But I would much prefer just one fucking organization. Is what it is. Beggars can't be choosers. This guy is on top of the fucking wrestling world right now. He is steamrolling the headlines. And like I said, Dominion, Osaka, Japan, he will be competing over there, New Japan. And he's also got a big matchup coming up with Joey Janela on, June 29th at Fyter Fest for AEW. Joey Janela is a crazy dude, and he does some wild shit. Well, we know that Moxley is a crazy dude that does some wild shit. That Fyter Fest match, June 29th, that's going to be fun over in Daytona, Florida. That's going to be some fun shit. You know, so he's got these big matches in Japan. He's got these big matches for AEW. Who knows what he's going to do in between and thereafter. This guy is literally, it's like the shackles are off, literally and figuratively. And he is just loving this new life that he has, this new lease on life. He's like a kid in a candy store. You could see how happy he is. You could see how thrilled he is to be doing what he's doing. After he actually beat Juice Robinson, he gave a little bit of an interview over there in Japan, and he said straight out, he said, this is exactly how I wanted to feel, and this is how I need to compete. This is how I need to wrestle. He said, I want to thank Japan for allowing me to wrestle the only way I know how, to be as free as I am right now. And he said, expect a lot of violence because this is who I am. This is what I am. And so that's what I mean about that old school Moxley is there, but he's doing it in a much more, smarter way. And I love it, man. I really do. I wish him nothing but the best, but I had to take a few minutes of this podcast just to address the splash that Moxley has made the past 2 weeks. And on top of that, winning the IWGP United States Championship, taking the match at Dominion, taking the match at Fyter Fest, and just really taking all the headlines in the process. Fucking amazing, man. And again, it's just the craziness to see where he was at the top of the year in WWE and to see where he is now. Not even a half a year later. Not even a half a year later. Shit, a little over a month ago, we were seeing him as a fucking still a part of the Shield. And a washed up version of the Shield. It's just amazing, man. It's amazing how life works, Always, if there's a lesson to be learned here, wherever you are in life right now, if you think that's the dumps, if you think that's rock bottom, and it may be, don't worry. Tomorrow's a new day. And if you play your cards right and you keep grinding and you keep kicking ass, you may be at rock bottom now. You'll be on top of the fucking world if you do all the right things in no time. This guy was at rock bottom in WWE. Rock fucking bottom. Go back to that gas mask and the horrible jacket and the fans giving him no response and giving all these horrible dialogues from the bullshit writers. That's rock bottom in the business. And look at him now, not even half a year later. He is on top of the pro wrestling business. Unfucking real. That's all I'm going to say about Moxley right now because I want to switch gears for just a couple minutes and talk about another third of the Shield, Roman Reigns. I've been saying in a few videos now that this guy, his response is no longer, I don't see how it's even fun to the 50-50 type fan that thinks that's fun. Roman Reigns' reaction for 4 years plus now has just been 50 boo, 50 cheer, right? 50-50%. I say 70-30, even 60-40, but I'll give you guys the benefit of the doubt just so we won't get into the petty arguments. We'll say 50-50. But now, you're not even seeing that. I'm seeing a lot more people just not even care about Roman Reigns. Yes, you're going to get the kids, the women, and even some men that are like, I like him. And they're going to cheer him. That's great, right? Fucking even Apollo Crews has some people that cheer him. That's awesome. Titus O'Neil, Zack Ryder, that's great. What I'm saying is the majority, you're seeing it more and more. They're just not caring. Now, I said for the longest time, 50% boo, 50% cheer. Vince McMahon says, hey, it's a reaction, so that's all that matters. I say as a fan, that's not making it fun. Once in a blue moon, that'll create a pretty cool atmosphere, right? When the crowd is turning on each other and giving that 50-50 reaction. But that's only once in a blue moon. Normally, in most of the time, it's just not making it fun for everyone in attendance and certainly everyone at home. It's not creating the buzz that this son of a bitch is the one we all want to see. I couldn't imagine Hulk Hogan getting a 50-50 response back in the 80s and early 90s. I couldn't imagine Stone Cold getting a 50-50 response back in that Attitude Era. For some reason, over 10 years now, almost 15 years, John Cena was the main guy with a 50-50 reaction. And that's why it wasn't that fun. That's why ratings started to go down. Then he finally leaves, for the most part. Roman Reigns now takes over, and for the past 4 years, and I don't see any end in sight, he's 50-50 cheer booed. When does it end? When can we just get a superstar we all are jumping out of our seats in excitement because this motherfucker is larger than life, A, and B, we want to see him. He is the top guy. We go from Cena into Roman Reigns, and they're both just 50-50 reaction. It doesn't make it fun. That is the fucking truth. If you're wondering why Roman Reigns comes down and you're not feeling some type of way, that you're not feeling like it's excitement, you're not feeling that you want to see him in the top spots, if you're feeling that way, it's because it's justified. Most people are feeling that way. Nobody wants to sit there when half the crowd doesn't even give a fuck. That's contagious to the people at home. Could you imagine Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold getting those reactions, man? Fucking A, that'd be horrible, man. He beats Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan does, at WrestleMania 7, and 50% of the people are like, fuck you, boo. What the fuck? Stone Cold's music, the glass shatters, and 50% of the people are like, fuck this guy. Not even getting out of their seats. That's what you're seeing with Reigns, and that's what you're telling me Vince is going to put back in the top spot any day now. He's already being groomed for that. A win over Shane, a win over Drew at Stomping Grounds, and then it's on from there, man. He's being groomed for that. He's already on all the posters. He's on all the promotional material on the network. He's on all the fucking tour rigs. Come on, man. Open your eyes, man. Open up the don't pieces and start thinking, man, logically. He's being groomed once again to be that top guy, and nobody gives a fuck, or more and more people are starting not to give a fuck. Switch this guy into something. Do something with his character. Kane, The Big Show, Braun Strowman, Nia Jax, Dolph Ziggler, Triple H, Chris Jericho. All of these guys you flipped so many times. Heel, face, heel, face. Why is Roman Reigns any different? The guy already gets 50-50 reaction, and on top of that, he's starting to get even lower than that. People are starting to be disinterested now. You got nothing to lose. Nothing at all to lose. The Rock got a reaction with Rocky Sucks and Die Rocky Die. That's a reaction. They were loud. They were vocal. You didn't stick with it, did you? No, you turned him heel. But what happened is he's getting a reaction. Why would you not do something with Roman so that all of us can be interested? Even if he's a heel, at least we're interested. Make him a dastardly heel, like a Triple H type villain. Or Randy Orton when he was taking out legends. That was a cool gimmick. Make him ruthless. Make him part of a new formed authority. Make us really hate him. And I'm telling you, if done correctly, and he really gets to showcase his charisma and personality, if there's any in him, and that shines, then you could turn him back face and he'll be more over than ever before. But I wanted to double down on those comments. This is actually tripling down because this is the third time I've had to speak about it. But I saw a comment on somebody who was obviously in agreement, like most of us, and they said a comment about Reigns, and somebody commented to that comment, "Oh boy, another channel that just slams Roman." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Obviously you don't watch the channel because I don't just slam Roman. I have nothing but respect for every superstar, and especially Joe/Roman. But I'm calling out the truth. I called it out when it was 70-30 more boos than cheers. When it was 60-40. And I'll give you the benefit of the doubt when it was 50-50. But now I'm starting to see more and more people it's like a chore when his music hits. You'll see a lot of people in the crowd. It's a chore for them to even get out of their seats. And that's your top guy, supposedly. That's not slamming someone. That's telling the truth and saying that this is a severe problem right now that WWE has. People are worried and complaining about a 24/7 title. You should be way more worried and complaining about who Vince McMahon has in the top spot or is groomed to be once again, and his name is Roman Reigns. I'm cool with that. But he needs to start shaking up that character. I need to see more charisma, more personality, more dimensions to that character. Different aspects, man. We have to start seeing more from Roman. I don't want to. We should not have to put up with another 4, 8, or 12 years of this Roman Reigns, no character development at all, this Roman as the top guy for the next decade. Because that reaction that everybody said he was getting, it's getting lower and lower, I assure you. People are caring less and less. And that's a big issue because in the first place, he lost or never had half the audience. This isn't slamming Roman Reigns. I don't know how many times I have to say this. This is a concern. If you are a Roman Reigns fan, that's great. I need you to step out of your fandom for a second and think about how it is for other wrestling fans that are not Roman fans, that are just pro wrestling fans that want to see the product get better. Take yourself out of the fandom for a moment and listen to what I'm saying. Think about the rest of the pro wrestling community and pro wrestling world at large. Just like Cena, Reigns is holding this company hostage. No fault of his own, necessarily. Vince McMahon is placing his golden child there. But it's a hostage situation. Nobody can get around this guy. It's a perfect segue. I was talking about Moxley, Dean Ambrose, and then I segued into Roman. It's a perfect segue. Because Dean Ambrose, a lot of people would say, couldn't be a top guy in WWE because he was always in the shadow of Roman. Like so many others. I'm going to cut that segment for now because we got to talk some Becky Lynch. Now for the last segment of the 19th ever BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast, I want to talk a little Becky Lynch. Now this will be a little hard to swallow and hard to take in for Becky Lynch faithful. I understand that. But please be advised to take this in the most respectful, truthful way possible. Because I assure you, this is based on nothing but truth and facts. And this is about the interview that Becky Lynch did last week where she proclaimed that she wants to and is going to main event another WrestleMania. And this time she's going to do it without Ronda Rousey. That left us all, or a lot of us, thinking, hold up, we got a lot to say about that. Now, on one hand, you absolutely expect everybody on that roster to proclaim, to say they want to and that they're going to main event WrestleMania. You want them to say that. You want them to believe in that. So that's adorable. I'm okay with her saying that in that regard. Everybody should be saying that. But a lot of people took that and they ran with it. And they already are trying to think of other opponents and how it can be done. Guys, the truth is, and this might hurt for Becky Lynch faithful, it ain't going to happen, or it should never happen again. Or it'd have to be drastically changed. Becky Lynch's character, starting yesterday, would have had to been drastically changed. We saw how tragic that build was with Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda to WrestleMania. We know now that the real main event of 35 was Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan, and that's not saying or being Monday morning quarterback, right? Because it's easy to look back at Sunday's game and criticize and critique. No, we're not playing Monday morning quarterback. Although, looking back at it, yes, it was the best match on the card. And it was the match that captivated the most people. But even before WrestleMania 35, that was the true main event, Kofi and Daniel Bryan, because that was the best storyline. Naturally, fresh, organically, it was just the best thing going. But the social justice warrior agenda and having the women main event WrestleMania for the first time, that was just too big and couldn't be overshadowed. So no matter how tragic the build was, that match still ended up being in the main event. Even though I'm not a Becky Lynch fan, I still gave Becky Lynch the benefit of the doubt, and I gave her respect and due for that match, and I even gave her fan base the respect and due, and when I did my review show, The Good, Bad, and Ugly, I even gave it a good. To show that there's no hard feelings that Kofi and Daniel Bryan wasn't the main event. Hey man, the women won our main event for the first time ever. That's cool. I did not think, and I still don't to this day, that that match should have been the main event. Rousey and Becky Lynch around Survivor Series 2018. That was something special. Unfortunately, because of Nia Jax, that got derailed. But everyone that thought that they were going to be able to keep that momentum to WrestleMania 35, you were fooling yourself. And I told you that from day one, and I caught a lot of flack, didn't I? But who ended up being right? The Amplified Man. The booking, I should say, of that entire feud, or lack thereof, was one of the most tragic bookings, creatively speaking, or uncreatively speaking, that I have ever seen in pro wrestling. Becky Lynch hopped around for 2 months on one leg. Charlotte Flair gets added for literally zero reason other than to make it a triple threat and throw her in there, just like Charlotte has to be a part of everything. Ronda Rousey didn't get an edge to her until about a month before the match actually transpired. Up until that point, she was just giving hoorah college attaboy speeches. It was horrible. Had no meaning being in the main event. But everybody thought, oh, Survivor Series didn't happen because of Nia. Now this is going to be built up to be the best thing in the world. It should be, and it's going to be the main event. You're right, it was the main event, but it shouldn't have been. Kofi and Daniel Bryan, clearly, especially with Kofi winning the strap in that magical fucking moment, that is how WrestleMania should end. Shawn Michaels-esque WrestleMania 12. Hulk Hogan-esque WrestleMania 7. Bret Hart, WrestleMania 10. That is how WrestleManias should be ending. Those magical, miracle moments. When the impossible becomes possible. Instead, we got this weird triple threat. We didn't have high expectations for it anyway. And when it was done, maybe the expectations were even fucking lower. Or lowered than we originally had going into it. The point is this, even with Ronda Rousey, and you guys know I'm a huge fan of Rousey, that should not have been the main event. Now, she's getting a lot of steam from this interview from a lot of fans. And she's getting some backing now. Yes, Becky for WrestleMania 36 main event. For what? And with who? Becky Lynch in another main event? For what? You know how many females are on that roster, not just the main roster, but NXT, that are far better wrestling-wise? Could you imagine if you were getting matches like Asuka and Shayna Baszler? Could you imagine if you were getting Io Shirai versus Ember Moon? Or shit, Io versus Charlotte? Kyrie versus Sasha? Or shit, Sasha Banks versus Bayley? Let them finally have and culminate their feud. Fuck the best friends. Fuck the almost like sisters, that's how close we are. No, how about a brutal who's better than who match that we were gonna get, we thought we were gonna get at first, and then they become a tag team. Let's get Bayley and Sasha. Put a strap up on the line, and that will be physical as fuck and a damn good match. We already know what they can do. We've seen in the NXT takeovers. Put them on the main stage. I just gave you guys a bunch of female matches that have a chance to be a main event, but even then, you would have to start yesterday at building that properly. And I mean characters first, to make people give a shit about it. And then you have to give them the most epic storyline possible. No bullshit. And you're telling me Becky Lynch, out of all the females, she should get another main event? What are you gonna feed me on? That she still has any momentum like she did back in November? That died off by Royal Rumble. And that Royal Rumble even died off more to WrestleMania. And now here we sit in June and it's died off almost fully. Even people that were on the Becky Lynch bandwagon are now saying, this is boring, this is stale. Now mind you, a lot of that is fickleness. A lot of that is people just moving on to the next. Because people's patience and people's tolerance for just staying with something is almost at a point nothing these days. And that pisses me off too, trust me. People's attention spans is almost at point nothingness, and it pisses me off. But don't get it twisted. Like the Amplified man, a lot of those fans are saying it's stale and boring because it just is. And it's not even Becky's fault fully. It's the booking and it's the WWE machine. We knew it was going to get watered down. We were just hoping that someone like Becky can turn that shit into gold. She's turning it into bronze and sometimes silver, which is good. But we want great, and I don't see shit being turned into gold. It's not even Becky's fault fully, man. You're throwing her Lacey Evans for a couple pay-per-views. You're throwing her and keeping her attached with Charlotte Flair forever. So she doesn't even have room to grow on her own. But, again, on one hand, it's awesome she's saying those words. I want a main event again. But it's bold to say without Ronda. Because without Ronda, you wouldn't have been in that first one. And without Ronda, ain't no professional wrestling fan with a brain in their don't piece that's not just literally sucking the left tit of Becky Lynch. Literally, if you do know what you're talking about as a wrestling fan, ain't nobody is clamoring or wanting a Becky Lynch main event in Tampa Bay for WrestleMania 36. Nobody. I'm a Sasha Banks fan. To the utmost degree. This is a pro Sasha Banks channel, and I'll be the first to say, Sasha Banks today, even if she was back on the main roster, like back traveling with WWE, we know she's not right now, but even if she was, I would say no, she's nowhere near main event ready. Why should the rest of, just because I'm a Sasha fan, I would love to say yes, main event, and I'll love it. But I'm thinking about just pro wrestling fans, not necessarily Sasha fans. Why should they be forced to watch a Sasha Banks main event if it's not worthy of being a main event? So I'll be the first to say no. You would have to show the average wrestling fan who's not a Sasha fan why Sasha Banks is in the main event. What did her character do to get into the main event? Who is her opponent? And why is that feud worthy of being the main event? And I'm saying that as a Banks fan. Of course I would love to see it as a Banks fan. But I call it down the middle. I don't care who you are. You have to be worthy of the actual main event spot. I don't care about any social justice warrior shit. I don't care about fucking breaking some evolutionary boundaries that have never before been broken. While I'm happy for the females main eventing, the actual main event should have been Kofi and Daniel Bryan. The main event of Mania should be the most captivating match with the biggest outcome possible about to be showcased for the world. Kofi Kingston winning that strap after the story was gold. 11 years following the same trajectory and path of Daniel Bryan. Everything and everybody working against him. And he overcomes all the odds. And the party is on. And you guys saw after that match, nobody was able to follow that. So, if I can be honest with you guys and say, hey, I understand a non-Sasha Banks fan at this point would not want to see Sasha in there. Even a non-Ronda Rousey fan wouldn't want to see Ronda back in a main event of Mania in Tampa for 36. So I understand that. So you, as a Becky Lynch fan, would have to understand that if you're not a Becky Lynch fan, why the fuck are we going to suffer through another Becky Lynch main event? Who? Becky versus Kyrie? Becky versus Ember? Becky versus Sasha? Come on, man. Becky is good. She is not great. That's hard to take in. I understand. I have to be truthful on this platform. She's good. She's not great. New York City, WrestleMania 35, the 35th anniversary. And I got Becky Lynch in the main event. All because the match that was supposed to happen at Survivor Series 6 months earlier between Ronda and her never happened. So then everybody had to jump on the bandwagon. We have to see this in the main event of Mania. Thanks a lot, guys. Because then we suffered through one of the worst storylines / feuds / booking catastrophes I've ever witnessed in pro wrestling for 6 months. And then, what's the reward for that catastrophe? The tragedy that took place at 35. So what's the verdict when it's all said and done? Let's do it again. Becky's already fucking adamant. I'm gonna do it again. I want another Mania match. This time, I don't even want Ronda in it. Yes, great. Knowing Vince, it'll be Becky Lynch versus Mandy Rose in the main event of 36. And some fans will be totally with it. Yeah, this is great. Becky Lynch is hotter than ever. The momentum train is steamrolling. Fuck me. I love when people fucking are boisterous and bold in their predictions and what they're gonna do in their goals and their aspirations. I'm gonna main event every Mania from here on out. That's great. But the fact that this news story took traction and became this little interview excerpt became a news story, I had to speak about it. No way does 90+% of the wrestling fans out there need to see another Becky Lynch main event at Mania. Save us all at that point. The Amplified Man. 19th ever Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. It is concluded. We'll do it again next week, and that will be the 20th anniversary. 20 fucking episodes. Time flies when you're having fun, man. What a week it has been. We have pumped out a video almost every fucking day, and I'm going to see you guys Tuesday morning for the Raw review and reaction, and who knows, the way I'm going and the rate I'm going, there might be an impromptu tomorrow for Monday. So always stay subscribed and notified. The Amplified Man saying check you.